So, Ting, you did your BS in physics?
That's right.
Yeah.
And the PhD in biophysics. All right, thanks, Sean, for the introduction. And I also thank the organizer for inviting me to this great conference. My primary focus on synthetic biology, which is the design, construction, and the utilization of gene regulating network for programming cellular functionality. So in particular, we're interested in three-line research in my lab. We're into engineering probiotic bacteria for therapeutic application. Second, to understand and program bacterial community. And the third is integrated modeling of gene regulating networks. So in this talk, I'll primarily talk about our recent effort about understanding and programming bacterial communities. When we talk about bacterial community, the first thing we want probably would look at is the single bacteria. So bacteria are really single-cell organisms. They are everywhere around us. They're in the soil, water, and the living body of animals and plants. And the single bacteria, they are very tiny. If we look at the case like E. coli, they have a dimension of 1 micron times 1 micron times 3 micron with a shape like a rod. And they divide every 30 minutes, have a genome size around 5 million base pair, and which contain about 4,000 protein coding genes. And further, if you look at single bacteria, they can grow, divide, move, and also to interact with each other. And this kind of interaction between cells actually leads to organization of communities. And for instance, so if in laboratory settings, bacteria, they can form like concentric rings, like spirals, or like a fractal structure as well. And further, if we look at the spatial setting in nature, then microbes, they can form more complex structure, such as biofilm as shown here, which are highly heterogeneous in space as well as time. So understanding those micro communities are very important. They're due to the following three reasons. First, as I mentioned, so bacteria are single-cell organisms, but they are in the form of complex community, such as biofilm and microbiome in the human body. In reality, you barely see single cell in isolation in reality, and you always see like community of bacteria together. Second reason is that the physiology as well as functionality of bacteria, they could really highly depend on their form. When they are in a single cell form or when they are in biofilm community form, the physiology and functionality could be very distinct. The very good example is bacteria antibody resistance. So single bacteria are often sensitive to antibiotics. However, when they form a community, they get a resistance by communicating each other, so they can grow even under the stress response. The third reason is that recent advances in biotechnology research show that engineered microbial consortia instead of single bacteria can offer unique advantages for application. And this kind of engineered consortia, they have a chance to provide a more robust functionality as well as more spectrum of capabilities. So with this in mind, so we basically want to understand the structure, dynamics, and the function of bacterial communities. And of course, the goal, we want to understand them, predict them, and eventually to re-engineer them. Towards that, they kind of overall picture, specific interest in understanding the relationship between cell social interaction and the structure and dynamic of communities. And our ultimate goal is we want to understand the emergent behavior coming from cell interaction and also ultimately to program spatial temporal pattern community with synthetic gene circuits. And to achieve this kind of goal, so we propose, we want first to look at why we want to start with bacterial social interaction. And that because of the fact that bacteria, they are highly social in reality. Here's the case of where I show for a pair of bacterial species, and they could have different type of interaction. For instance, they could compete each other, they can cooperate, They can also form a commensal, amensal, and mutualism, and parasitism, and so on. They create a very complicated and diverse interaction map. And further, in addition to direct interaction, bacteria are also able to communicate. They are able to sending and sensing small signaling molecules, such as quantum sensing molecule, allow them to coordinate their behaviors. With this in mind, so we want to study the community organization using engineered bacterial community. The reason we use synthetic bacterial community is because natural community are simply too complicated. A typical natural community often consisting like 10 to 7 species, and the population is huge. They become too complex systems. So synthetic ecosystem allow us to fully engineer cellular interaction, so they give us a very nice abstraction of natural system, allow us to analyze the dynamic and behaviors. In reality, so recent research has already shown that programmed cellular interaction is possible. For instance, like researchers already create like engineered bacteria to create a predator-prey system, and also other ecosystems such as commensalism, amensalism, and mutualism, and so on. And further research trying to program synthetic bacteria on biofilm as well. But they also can study primarily focus on the case where those species are well mixed in liquid. That means there's no spatial information there. But research also try to create engineered microbe in space. For instance, they can perform like a bull's eyes or like stripe patterns, and also like a morphogen gradient free pattern formation of bacterial populations. So we want to combine here experimental approaches from synthetic biology with computational modeling with using physics and math, and hopefully the experiment can help us to model the abstract, to model the abstraction, to verify the model abstraction, and also to inspire new viewpoint. Meanwhile, modeling could help us to analyze data and also generate new hypotheses. We hope that such kind of cyclic interaction between experiment and the modeling could help us to facilitate the understanding about bacterial communities. So the first thing we did is to create a biophysical modeling framework for bacterial communities. Bacterial communities are actually a multi-scale system. At a single cell level shown here, the bacteria, they could interact each other. As I mentioned like earlier, they could compete or cooperate or could care or could benefit. But if we look at ecological level, the bacteria, they could form spatial structure in ecology, that they have different patterns. However, if we look into the single cell, it is the underlying gene regulatory network that control the behavior of cellular interaction. And those other events across multi-scale from spatial aspect as well as temporal aspect. So we developed a modeling framework which is to address these three aspects of interaction in different ways. First of all, when we consider bacteria growth, division, expansion, approach use individual-based model approach, we describe the following expansion and then calculate the motion of individual that we can simulate the population expansion. And then we will consider the chemical diffuse crossing the cell. We're using reaction diffusion to describe the process. And the underlying gene network, we can use deterministic stochastic simulation, depending on your need. If we look a little bit further about the mechanical description about cell population, you consider the process here, like in the start with single cell and they grow and divide in the form microcolony shown here. So what we really use that, we treat a single bacteria as an object. And the object, they can, like a rod, they can grow and divide, but when they only grow and divide, because they increase the volume, which generate a force between them. This force actually lead to the movement of the cell due to the Newton's law, and which eventually create a microcolony shown here. So with this in mind, we developed a simulation, and here they show a case where a single bacterial community start with two species, green and red, and start with a few cells in the center and grow outward. And you can see actually they grow and they start from like spatial structure in colony here. Notice that here, the cell in the center grow in the beginning, but however later they stop grow. That's because those cells eventually they do not have access to the nutrient because the nutrients are all depleted by the cell outward. So therefore the cell do not grow in the center. But however, this is the case where we simulate the population formation in two-dimensional case. Then you may ask, can we extend it to 3D case or not? So here's a snapshot about the simulation, about 2D here. So let's start with 0 at a few cells, and then with the going divide and evolve and eventually form microcolonies. And we further extend the system to describe a 3D scenario, which I mean, we again model the colony formation, slide across the colony and see how the height of the colony form and the evolve time. And this is a picture. However, we can also zoom in into the specific area inside the colony to see how they evolve indeed. For instance, we just look here, which is zooming over there. They grow and divide, and eventually cells start to stack together and form colonies. All right. So with this platform, we want to ask some simple questions. And the first question we want to ask is that how does cell interaction type determine the structural community? I mentioned that bacteria, they have different type of interaction. They could compete, cooperate, and amensalism, mutualism, and so on. Then we ask how the mode of change of interaction could lead to the alteration of spatial structures. To do that, so we are using the colony expansion as a model system to describe the pattern formation organization in space, which has been pioneered by David Nelson and Bird. But these are experimental settings. So we sort of mimic the process of this colony expansion in the computational situation. Here's the case where we describe the colony expansion and for different types of cell interaction. For instance, here the case where mutualism, then green as red two cells, they do not have direct chemical interaction. While for the case, for instance, mutualism, that means green and red, two types of cells, they benefit each other. While for competition, the two type of cells, they kill each other. Interesting, we found that in these kind of different types of social interaction, and the species, do you have a question?
Just real quick, how do you actually program that interaction and say, they like each other, or do they, when you say they don't like each other, do they kill each other? You have two of them becoming one?
So in this case, so we as well assign the bacteria which is able to produce toxin. If the toxin level, if the cell sensing the toxin level to a threshold, the cell die. And then the space will free up, will be replaced by nearby cells. All right. So we found that here, interesting behavior that for mutualism, we found that green-red two types of, they are well mixed compared with the neutralism, which is control, which do not have cell interaction. However, for a case with competition, green and red, they are highly spatially segregated and very heterogeneous. That sort of makes sense because for mutualism, because the green red, they stay together, help each other, and let them grow them better. However, for competition, because the two species kill each other, so therefore better stay away. So we also try for different type of initial conditions and found this kind of conclusion remain true. And with this simulation, we then have a little simple analysis about the spatial structure of the population.
Sorry, so the mutualism at the bottom doesn't seem to have phase separation. Is that just a finite size effect?
Sorry, could you say it again?
It does seem to be phase separated compared to well mixed when you get bigger. So is this like a finite size effect?
You be that partial because the initial cell density is smaller. Like because they will start with a few cells, so before they start to touch each other, they already form kind of micro sectors.
Okay.
Like the better way to compare, you always compare the control here. Yes. So here we assume the bacteria do not are unable to diffuse actively. They only grow, expand through like mechanical force, through push, which you can see grow outward. And for toxin, we assume the diffusion contact be fairly small actually, so they will really be on the local like interactions. But the second part, later I will discover how the scale of interaction plays a role here.
Is this about the non-time behavior or something?
Was that?
The images you're showing us about non-time behavior?
They're pretty long, so like the colony here, they're consisting about 30,000 bacteria. They start with like around 10, and they grow and divide, and eventually form like a colony around 30,000. We parallel the program, so therefore we can simulate the simulation from few cells to 30,000 within like 30 minutes.
No, how sensitive is this to initial conditions? So, I mean, if you have sort of, phase-separated initial conditions, do you...
Well, initial condition definitely would play a role. Here, in the case, we actually assign the identical initial condition for all different species to avoid like.
Those systems are not, right?
Okay. All right. So here we analyze some of the spatial structure of the colony, and one thing we did just very simple, just simply analyze the relative abundance of green and red species. And kind of interesting here again, if we look at the mutualism, which benefit each other in the competition, we found that here the solid line corresponds to the mean value of relative abundance. And over time, we actually average over many trial of simulation, so the ensemble average of the population abundance, and found that on average, the green and red they remain equal. That's because the two interaction competition they are fully symmetrical. Same for the competition case. So they remain 50% all the time. However, the shading area corresponding to the variance, you found that the mutualism case, the variance is really tiny compared with the mutual control case, which you can increase over time. However, the competition is way much larger. And so further, again, we also can analyze the roughness of colony. Again, so the variance for mutualism is very tiny. And however, for that of competition are really big. That tells us actually, if we want to engineer a microbial community, we probably would go with mutualism. So therefore, you give a very stable spatial population structure. Yes, please.
What do you mean by roughness?
Oh, roughness. So sorry, I didn't explain. So I kind of similar like the shape of colony. If it's a circular, then they're perfect. If they are not circular, then they mean higher roughness.
So what are you actually measuring? Perimeter?
So we kind of make a circle around the colony and then calculate the or we'll look at the shape and then define like what's the roughness of the colony. I'm not sure if that answers your question. Okay, so to explain this phenomenon, we just developed a very simple like a mathematical model to describe the competition in well-mixed case, which do not contain any spatial information, and which are this equation here. Of course, they cannot really represent the spatial pattern formation, but at least could give us some insight out of that. And we showed about the ecosystem. We found that well, for the well-mixed cases, if the system, if the bacterial population are mutually compete each other, they could are mutually exclusive. Either green or red could win. If they are benefit each other, they can coexist. And parasitism, they can only one of them survive, and same for the other one as well. We found that so the cases were in the origin corresponding to the spatial setting, which we assume there's no other interaction. So you see kind of structure formation here. And the case competition, of course, well-mixed case, but if we refer to the spatial setting here, we can see that the green and red, they are mutually exclusive. So it's shown here. And for mutualism, the green and red, they're mixed in spatial settings. And same for the parasitism and also for commensalism as well for amensalism. Kind of could give us some qualitative behavior about the structure of communities. Okay, so this is the first question. Second question, we want to ask that how does the scale of interaction would affect the community structure? That's a good question. We haven't tried yet. Yeah, we start with very simple system and two species and simple interaction, and then see how it goes. But I think naturally one step further is to study more complex system with a multi-species and also contain more complex interaction. But very good, important, point. The second question we ask that how does the scale of interaction plays a role here? Say for bacteria, say where one species could kill the other, but they could kill in different ways. For instance, one way for one species kill the other just through the production of toxins which are attached to the cell membrane, as shown here. Which these they do not diffuse away. They always attach to the cell membrane. So therefore, these cells do not kill the other species unless they are physically in contact with a handshake. But in another scenario, bacteria they could produce some small diffusible molecule which is able to kill that species. So therefore, allow killing in a larger range, local range. Then we ask how the scale of interaction plays a role in terms of information. Toward that line, we go for experiments. And we develop two types of ecosystems, which again consist of two species. And one species, one ecosystem involves contact-dependent inhibition, which is shown here. So the green and the gray two type of cell. So the green cell is only able to kill the cell next to each other because of contact-dependent inhibition. In the other ecosystem, we allow the killer to diffuse the toxin away. So therefore, they are able to kill a species in nearby regions. Then we ask how does that play a role to impact the structure of communities. And the first thing we did that to confirm they are indeed able to have different type of interactions. So we did single cell image and to show how, micro single cell, how the bacteria will look and to lead to the conformation. So the first column corresponds to the ecosystem which have contact-dependent inhibition, which is green going to kill red. So start from 0 and 1R, 2R, you can see that green cell continue propagate, replicate, but the red cell does not. And this is the case when cells do not have in contact. It's not clear here, but basically have like green cell here and red cell here. They are separated, so both green cell and red cell are able to grow. That's because they are not in direct contact. That confirms that the contact dependent. Then we also did the case for a second inhibition, which assumes they are diffusible chemicals. In that case, whether they are contact or not in contact, so green can always kill and inhibit the growth of red. And this is for control where both green and red can grow. So therefore, we confirm that at a single cell level that we are able to create different mode of interaction in terms of spatial scales. This is about a single cell level. Look at the colony formation as spatial settings. So here the case where we got colony, there are two types of species. They do not have direct interaction, contact inhibition. We started basically what we did that we have a mixed cell population and add a droplet on the agar and then see how the colony evolves and grows. And they start from here center and then grow outward. And you see they have separation green and red over time. And here the case where the green cell is able to kill the red through contact-dependent manner. So again, the start with cell here, and they will initially, but however, because the cell density is pretty high, so you do not see any red cell at all. And on the edge of the initial, there's some green cell they survive. Yes.
In this case, can we assume that the reproduction rate within the red zone is equal to the kill rate at the surface of the interface? Or why wouldn't red be completely killed?
You mean here? So that because this is like the area which we have initial droplet. So that means in that initial setting, those cells are all well mixed in cross entire spaces. So therefore, the cell could easily in contact in very short time. So therefore, they are able to kill the entire spaces, the entire population. However, on the edge, because they are wide open space here initially, so therefore, the cell can grow outward to keep survive. Does that make sense? Okay, so therefore, so over time, so you can go over time, you go look outward. So compared with the control case here, you still see some red cells survive, but they do not survive very long. Eventually, they all die out. That again due to the contact-dependent inhibition. If we do the control case for the long-range inhibition, if there are no direct killing, so they can survive equally. However, if there's competition going on, so there are no red cells survive, regardless of the initial condition actually. So that's because the green cell is able to kill the cell across a nearby area. So therefore, no red colony is able to survive through the process. So again, so indicate that the interaction at a single cell level could reflect at ecological levels. Then we, again, so to have a little more exploration about this system, and we should see how the pattern will look like if we change their initial ratio of green-red cells. Here they show the 1-to-1 ratio, green and red, and the first column again, just see the replica of the last slide. So when then control, then no, they can both survive, and the content depends, so they'll be die out, but can survive a little bit initially. Then the control here, they co-survive, but here again, the killer cell will occupy the space. And then we try different initial ratio and with 1-to-2, 1-to-5, 1-to-10, and the other way as well. So show indicate that those kind of, indeed, so the cell-cell interaction could play essential role in this process, although the ratio could matter a little bit as well. But these again, here the case where we only show the combination is one way. The green cell kill the red cell on a one-way kind of killings. Now we actually stand a little further and to explore the case where we have two type of interaction, I mean two-way interaction. So one species kill A kill B through content-dependent manner, B kill A through long-range manner. Then see how the structure will look like. So here we vary the initial condition for in terms of the ratio as well as the total cell density. And here the case where the cell do not have any cell-cell interaction and control very much. And then we try the case where with content-dependent inhibition, you can see the difference between the control versus this case here. You can see that at higher initial cell density case, the killer cell, CDI killer cell already occupy entire space, and there's no survival of the other species. That's because when the cell density initially very high, so all the sensitive red cells, they face the challenge of being killed by the killer by the other species. So therefore, you do not see any survival. However, if you reduce the initial cell density, you can see some survival of the sensitive strain. And then we try the case where we see with long-range inhibition, and it look like no matter how the initial condition look like or how the ratio look like, the red cell always dominant spaces. And then we find out here we show the case getting interesting. Where I mean the two species, the green cell kill the red through content-dependent manner, red kill green through diffusible manners. And you can see here, we clearly see a free separation of this population structure, where in the case where you have density or very high relative abundance of green, you see the CDI can survive. However, the cell, when you have very low initial density or they have more dominant of red cell, you see the more red cell could dominate. That's because, again, so whenever cell distance, every distance of cells are large enough, content-dependent inhibition cannot play a role at all. Instead, AH could always kill the other species. And however, when the cell density is extremely high, so the content-dependent inhibition could be more active or more efficient at killing the diffusible molecule because the toxin does not diffuse away. And here, we see the separation over here. You see some colony here, like here. They are kind of going weird. They kind of, I will call that as a colony collapse. There's a scenario where both green and red cells, they are having even competition. So therefore, neither of them grow very well. But you do not really, we see different shape of the colony could emerge along this boundary. However, for the remaining area, they are always very stable. And of course, this is the case where we have the CDI, the content-dependent inhibition for green, long-range inhibition for red. And we try, if the fluorescence will make the report will make a difference. We found that indeed does not change major result of these conclusions. Okay. All right, so this is the second question about how the scale of interaction plays a role here. And now we will move on to see how can we potentially to using sensor interaction to create artificial patterns. So one thing we did is that to create a band-pass pattern. Here we utilize a very unique feature of signaling molecule called niacin. Niacin is the antimicrobial peptide which is able to kill both spectrum of gram-positive bacteria, including lactic acid bacteria. And here the case, what we did is we make a hole on the agar, and then the agar was planted with a layer of cells. If you put a supernatant of the cell cell, you see that it's the cell on the agar, they can all grow up. However, if the cybernetic contains the anti-macropeptide, the inhibition zone form where the cell cannot grow. And the same molecule also have a capacity for signal transduction. If you put a niacin there, they're able to trigger the signal transduction, eventually lead to the fluorescent expression, as shown here. Then such a simple double feature of this molecule lead to a very interesting behavior. Consider a scenario where we have acts as a layer of space. There are layers of cells growing on that. And at the region, there are niacin source. Then you can imagine what will form like an exponential decay profile in space. And because of the niacin's antibacterial feature, you can imagine the cell close to the center region, they cannot survive very well. However, aware of that, they can survive. So therefore, the single cell survival probability will have a sigmoidal curve as shown here. At the same time, because of the signaling feature, you can imagine you always need a reasonable amount of threshold to make sure the cell can grow and to have signal responses. So it have correlation with the red. As a result, because both the survival curve and the signaling curve are there belong to the single molecule niacin. So therefore you can imagine if we count the total fluorescence in space, there will be multiplication of this curve and that curve, which will lead to a band path behavior shown here. So this is our design concept, and then we try experimentally and see. So here's the result. We had added a drop of niacin here, and then see how the pattern looks like. And you indeed see a very nice clear ring could form of the population. Again, due to the combination of the killing as well as signaling, which due to the band path behavior. And if we actually look into a single cell level, you can see both the cell population as well as fluorescence, they will change according to the space across here. And here, this bright field image shows how the cell survival looks like, which corresponds to the curve like here. And this corresponding to overfluorescence intensity, which is the curve shown here. So confirm that we're indeed able to program this simple pattern. And further, we show how can potentially to modify the pattern by introducing additional gene circuits. And here, what we did there, I mentioned the niacin able to kill the bacteria. So therefore, it will lead to the shape, the curve like here. What if we introduce an immunogene so that the bacteria will become insensitive to the antibody? So as you can imagine, if we do that way, so the radical will shift to the left. Eventually, then maybe all the cells will survive very well. So we try the experiment, and this is a case where we do not contain immunogene. So therefore, you see as you increase the niacin in the well, so both inner and the diameter of inner and outer ring increase. However, if you introduce immunogene, so you see that the outer ring increase when you increase niacin. However, inner ring remain the same. That's because the outer ring is defined by the signal transduction response here. So if you increase niacin, then they'll shift to the right. And the inner ring is determined by cell survival. If you have introduced immunogene, then the survival can always be very well. So the diameter of the inner ring could remain very small all the time.
Do you have a double ring?
That's a good question. So actually not real double ring, so like artifact. So when we make a hole, we take images, then the edge of that show like a fluorescence, but not real fluorescence because maybe like the geometry of the wells. Yeah. And then we actually do these experiments to do some like a summer camp kind of project for high school students. So basic idea is that we grow a layer of cell at the bottom of agar, and on top of that we put a mask, then mask a paper which is soaked with niacin. And then you can imagine, so because there's niacin there, those niacin will go diffuse to the bottom of the cell. And so the cell very close to the mask going to be killed. Away from that, they will survive. However, only the cell in appropriate distance will have fluorescent expression. So that's why, shown here, we put a mask on top, and at the bottom, we actually 24 hours later, we see the image, although the pattern on the mask actually reflects the growth pattern of bacteria. And we further look at the fluorescence, indeed you see only the edge of the shape will tend to produce fluorescent amine. replying to Andrew's question, so here is the edge. This is the edge of a petri dish. There's no real fluorescence, just like a geometry makes difference here. And we actually try for different type of signal, traffic signal. Indeed, we can program different type of pattern out of that. Okay, so so last example, I would like to show that also see how can we engineer cell-cell interaction for practical application. So one thing, so being very common in like a metabolic engineering or a fermentation of chemicals is, sorry, I just probably will skip this slide. In metabolism, or like for fermentation, typical procedure is that you grow the bacteria or like a microbe in liquid culture, and when they grow to a certain threshold, then you introduce chemical to induce the production of enzyme or gene, so eventually lead to the production of valuable compounds. Or we have two phases. One is the growth phase, the second the production phase of metabolites and other things. So the process can be monitored manually by humans, and we will think potentially to automate the process by introducing cell-cell communications. Towards that, to demonstrate that, we design a pathway for producing 1,4 video, and then we this pathway is enabled by 3 enzyme genes, which is XDH, SYLX, and MDLC. And for a typical scenario here, like a traditional process, you just let the cell grow for a while, and then they introduce the chemical and to induce the production of this gene. So we should reflect through the controller 1 here, which means you add a chemical, then they have a production of enzyme. And same for this one as well. So what do? We design a gene circuit which is able to sensing their own cell density, and this is essentially a pulse feedback loop. When the cell density is low, the output will remain silent or be low. However, when the cell density reaches a threshold, then this promoter is going to be activated, which will lead to the production of the following 3 genes. And we found that with these automated gene circuits, is indeed able to automate the process of fermentation, and actually the productivity is comparable, even a little bit higher than the manual control case. Okay, I think that's all for my talk. And so basically, we are interested in understanding and program bacterial community through cell-cell interactions. And I would like to thank all my students, particularly Wen Tao and Andrew, who are major contributors to the project I presented here. And also thanks to AHA and the Brilliant Behavior Foundation for the support. And thanks all for your attention. My research is a little bit different from the rest of you guys here. But you can consider single bacteria as an active particle. They are able to interact each other and are able to solve structures. Yes?
So it's a really good work. So you showed engineering particular patterns, so it's the GFP. Can you think about engineering patterns that change in time? So like genetic toggle switches such as behavior, and so your pattern will actually evolve?
Oh, you mean like as a temporal dynamics? Yes, in principle, it depends on how dynamic change or spatial dynamic change as well. Yeah, that's possible.
Brian, can you translate this to other cells besides these cell lines? Or?
Oh, you mean the pattern?
Yeah.
It could be translated in different type of gram-positive bacteria, but not to any other cell type, because you need to engineer a specific signal transduction pathway of the bacteria in order to sensing the signal molecules. Yeah, but I mean you can train to like some other bacteria close to those like bacteria which we use. Yeah. All right.
One more question, then our 30-minute break.
Is there something interesting about the sort of circular, or I guess not quite as three-dimensional, circular geometry, so if you were to confine them to channels, for example, so that they could only grow along certain confined channels?
Oh, yeah.
Is there an interesting thing to be able to do, because then you can control cell density and also the
Sure, definitely. So here we just really have very simple settings, go them like entire space. But if you say different geometries, then the pattern could be different. Yeah, very interesting actually to explore. Ultimately, we hope like those kind of the engineering of the spatial pattern in bacteria could give us some insight for like a tissue engineering, which means that the spatial temporal microenvironment are really important. All right. Okay. Cool. Thanks.